Okay, today we are going to learn about equations of a line. So basically, how can we draw a line when we have the equation of a line, or what are the different other methods that you can use to draw a line? Now, as we know, every function that we have, it is described by a certain equation. For a straight line, the equation y equals mx plus c, that's the general form. So that is the general form of the equation of a line. And what each of these letters represents something. So as we've learned before, we know what m is because we've learned this. That is gradient. And c is the y-intercept. So in an equation, these are the two values, m and c, which will be represented by a number. As we learned earlier, that the number that is represented by the gradient, if it's a bigger number, it's a more steep line. If it's a smaller number, then it's less steep. And we've also learned how a negative or positive gradient determines the direction of the line. So C is basically the y-intercept. And as we all know, y-intercept is the place where the line cuts the y-axis, just like the example in this picture that you can see. Okay, now if you are given a gradient, okay, and if you're given a y-intercept, so if you're given those two pieces of information, you can use those two pieces of information to plot and to draw a line. So for example, if you have a look for this one, okay, so to use to sketch a graph using the gradient intercept method, you need to make sure that there's two things that you have. As the name says, you need to know what the gradient is. You need to know what the intercept is. But for the intercept, we're looking at the y-intercept only. Okay, so for example, if we have a gradient as 2/5, remember, as we learned, the numerator represents the rise and the denominator represents the run. So like we were talking about and like we were discussing in class, the rise means you go in an up-down direction, and run means you go in a left-right direction. Okay, so you start at any point. What that means is it'll go 2 places up and 5 places across. And because it's positive, so you start at a point and you 2 places up and 5 across. Across means you are going to go right because it's a positive gradient. So therefore, if 2 is going up, 5 will be going to the right. So if the intercept is already given, so if the intercept is given, which is where we start, C, you go 5 across, 2 up, or 2 up, 5 across, either or. And you find your second point. Once you find the 2 points, you join the 2 lines, and you've got your line. Let's do an example, another example. Okay, so for this example, find the y-intercept and gradient and sketch the graphs. So the first thing, because it says y-intercept and gradient, the first thing we do, let's locate the two things. Okay, now remember, the equation is in the form of y equals mx plus c. So let's just put that in brackets right now. And let's see, what does each of them relate to? So our m is the number that is the coefficient of x, so that's 2. And our c is the constant, which is not 1, but -1. Okay, so -1 is our c, which is the y-intercept, and 2 is the gradient. So let's write that down, that m is equal to 2, and c is equal to -1. Now, as we looked up here, to actually work out where we're moving, we need to know what the rise and the run is. And when the gradient is in fraction form, then it's easy to identify that because visually we can see that. We can see that we have to go 2 places up and 5 places to the right. But if it's a whole number, like 2 over here, if it's a whole number, what can we do? What do you think we can do so that we know what the rise and run is? Can we write 2 as a fraction? Yeah, so it's 2 over 1. That's a fraction. Now, if it's as a fraction, can you now identify what the rise and the run would be? Yeah, so 2 would be the rise and 1 would be the run. So the easiest way to do this is if we draw our axis. So let's draw our axis. So let's draw this, and what we can do, and if we start, right, okay, so that's our x and y axis, x and y. Now remember how we said earlier, like in that example, always start at a point, and the point to start off with would be our y-intercept, which is that point. So that's the C. So let's identify, or let's mark our points. Okay, so let's write that down. That's -1, -2, 1, 2, 3, and that's -1, -2, that's 1, that's 2. Okay. Let's start with our y-intercept, which is C, which is equal to -1. So that C equals -1 means that our y-intercept has the coordinate of 0, -1. Okay, so let's go to 0, -1, which is there, and that's our C. Okay, from there, we're going to find the next point. Now, to find the next point, that's where the gradient comes. Okay, so you're going to go 2 places up, 1 across. Because both of them are positive, we're going to go up for rise and right for run. So from that point, I'll go 1, 2 places up and 1 across, and I end up at that point. And what I do is I just draw a line joining those 2 points, and that'll give me the line of y equals 2x minus 1. Y equals 2x minus 1. Make sense? Now remember, it's not very hard. It's quite simple. All you need to understand is that any point on that line, no matter what point you have, if you go from one point to the other, to the other, to the other, to the other, you will be traveling at the same slope. You will be traveling at the same angle along the x-axis. So therefore the gradient doesn't change. Okay, and it's easy to start with our y-intercept. When we start at the y-intercept, and then all we do is we follow the path that the gradient is taking. We go 2 up and 1 across. We can keep going, and we can maybe come up with 4 or 5 points and then join them together. You'll still get the same line. All right, let's move on. Let's do the second example. Now this one is slightly tricky. X is equal to 2y equals 6. Is it in the form of y equals mx plus c? No. Can we write it? Can we rearrange this so that it can be in the form of y equals mx plus c? Good. What do? Okay, so let's make sure that our x and y are on opposite sides of the equal sign. So the first thing we do is we can take away x. So we take away x on both sides, take away x, and that cancels out, and we have 2y is equal to 6, take away x. Okay, then what do? We divide by 2, divide by 2, divide all of that by 2, and what we have is y equals 6, take away x over 2. Is it still in the form of, keep in mind that it always has to be in this form, mx plus c. So keep this in mind. So we have y, yes, but we don't have mx plus c. It's in a different form. Now let's break down this fraction. 6 minus x over 2 is same as 6 over 2 minus x over 2, because both x and 6 have the same denominator. Now, what is 6 over 2? 6 over 2 is 3, and x over 2 can be written as just half x, same thing. Now again, we don't have our mx in front, So we just rearrange it again, and what we get, so if we just swap these two, okay, what we get is minus half x plus 3. So now we have the form of, that's y equals, that is mx plus c. And if we match up, that's our m and that's our c. All right, now let's plot it. So now let's plot this. Again, let's draw our axis. Okay, let's add the points. Okay, so again, where's our starting point? Let's always start at C. So C over there. So if we have a look, just going to move that slightly. Okay, now it's always good to state what your gradient and your intercepts are, y-intercept is. So what this tells us is m is equal to negative half, or negative 1 over 2, and c is equal to 3. So therefore it has the coordinate of 0, 3. So if we go to 0, 3 and mark C, so that's our point C over there. Now, this one has got a negative. It's negative 1 over 2. Negative half is same as negative 1 over 2 or 1 over negative 2. Now, that tells us the rise, and this tells us the run. If the rise is negative, which way are we going? Are we going down or up? Yes, we're going to go down. So one place down, run, 2 is positive, 2 across. So we go 1, 2 across, 2 across. Let's do one more, 1 place down, and 1, 2 across. Let's just say that is 4. And we've got 2 points. That's 1 point. That's another point. Okay, and now we can draw our line. We join all of those 3 points. And draw our line. There you go. And let's write down the equation of our line, which was x plus 2y equals 6. Okay. All right. So that was the first part on how we can draw a line using the intercept and gradient method. Now we're going to do the second part where we are going to use other methods to draw a linear function.